listening to the GM Shuffle, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
Welcome to the GM Shuffle. The GM Shuffle is presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. I am Geoff Schwartz, 8-year NFL vet, alongside Marty Hurney, former Carolina Panthers general manager and Washington Commanders EVP of player personnel and advisor. And we're here all season because the season has started now, Mondays and Thursdays. So make sure to stay tuned to everything we are doing. Marty, we have done it, Marty. We have made it to the start of the regular season. It is here. It begins in a couple of days. We'll have you prepared for Thursday Night Football on this show. Friday Night Football, a game in Brazil between the Chiefs and Chargers. We'll have you prepared for some of our best bets and some fantasy advice as well. Marty, how do you feel on the eve of the season? As a player, I felt like everything I did was for this moment. Like, camp is done. It's in the books. And the excitement in the building week one, no matter how good you were going to be, everyone thinks to win the Super Bowl this week. And I loved it on every team I was ever on.
Yeah, I mean, there's excitement, Geoff. I always had a lot of nervous energy. And going into the opener, I always thought that if a team had a fatal flaw, something that was really going to show up throughout the season, I think it shows up in game one. So if your rushing defense is porous, or, you know, if your defense can't stop anybody, or you can't protect the passer, those things tend to show up in week one. And that kind of keeps you up the night before the opener.
I'll tell you what, Marty, I slept like a baby before every game. Like Saturday night, man, I turned that hotel room down to 65 degrees. You know, the meetings are done by like 9. You know, we play some cards maybe till 10, curfews at 11, watch a little college football, just snuggle up in that bed. Bro, I slept good before every game. It didn't matter. My first start was 2009 against the Vikings Sunday Night Football. Right tackle, Vikings were, that was the NFC Championship game they went to that season against New Orleans. A great team, good team, slept like a baby. So you have different fears than I do before a game, and that's what makes this show fun. Marty, we talked last week about Micah Parsons. And as soon as we got off the air, of course, news broke. Micah Parsons was traded to the Packers. He was traded for Kenny Clark, a defensive tackle, and then 2 first-round picks this year and next year's, well, really 2026 and 2027, the next 2 drafts. And then he signed a 4-year deal for $180 million. And his new contract contains $120 million in guaranteed money, with $62 million through the first new year, $100 million through 2 years, and $141 million through 3 years. There's some other, you know, stuff you love to read all this stuff through. I'm not gonna do that. But basically, he's the highest non-paid quarterback in the National Football League. Now, before we get to maybe the contract, the trade is still stunning to me, Marty. How do we feel about how this went down?
Well, I think that how it went down makes you feel more skeptical than exactly what happened. And by that, I mean that, man, Geoff, it sure sounds like it feels like it was an emotional decision. You know, I think there was, I think that the Cowboys got very upset about the way that negotiations went. And we talked about this last time. Listen, I think every team in the league knows that, you know, if you don't deal directly with the agent, things like this happen. And I think that's what happened. But it felt like an emotional decision by Jerry Jones. And all the things he said afterwards, I don't think you could get that feeling out of most people's mind. Then they come around and extend Deron Bland, which to me, Deron Bland's agent hit perfect timing, because now when you do something like that, now you're looking to prove to people, oh, hey, listen, we have an eye on the future and we're going to extend guys. But the bottom line is they let one of the top pass rushers in the NFL go. Yeah. And you referred to the contract. If you look at it, I think for the top 5 non-quarterbacks, the top contracts are edge rushers.
Well, it's a super important position. And we talked about last week about the numbers with Parsons on the field, off the field. On the field, Cowboys #1 in efficiency in his entire career. Again, over multiple years. #1 in the NFL, and on the field, 31st in the NFL. I want to talk about the Packers and what this means to them, but I want to talk about Jerry Jones a little bit more here, Marty, because emotional decisions never work out well, right? We know that. And the thing that strikes me about this decision is that they go back, his hold up on the handshake part of this. It was reported afterwards that he bought the Cowboys on a handshake, which of course we know that's a small fraction of how you actually buy a team, right? Like the handshake matters, and of course, the 30 days afterwards, where the lawyers meet every day, also matters as well. But Jerry loves this idea of a handshake agreement. He thinks he agreed to a deal with Parsons via handshake after the meeting they had in March. But you know this, it takes two parties to tango. If Parsons doesn't believe that he agreed to a contract, the handshake doesn't mean anything. So for Jerry to hold this over, it's a handshake. It matters to me. That's what I thought happened. Clearly, Parsons did not feel the same way. So you miscalculated that, or you're using this as leverage in a really weird and obscure way. No one else talks like this about contracts around the National Football Union. The other thing that I kept hearing from Cowboys fans, and maybe it's a little bit of coping mechanism, is saying he wasn't good in the playoffs for us. We played playoff games. He wasn't great for us. Well, a couple of things are true there, right? One is that it's a small sample size, but two, for Parsons to do his best damage, you have to be ahead, right? He's a pass rusher. If you're behind in playoff games, guess what happens? We run the football on offense. We play action pass. We three-step, it's hard for Parsons to be the player you want him to be if you're not winning football games in the postseason, right, Marty? So I think that's a bad excuse. He's not good in the playoffs. Get rid of him. I don't know, man. Are you making the playoffs without one of the best pass rushers in the National Football League? I would say no. Like, to me, Marty, this is a huge blow for the Cowboys season. You know, from a player perspective, like if I'm counting on a player like this to help us win which game, which I'm sure you are, him to be traded away like this, isn't this deflating for everyone in the building?
Well, yes, and that's a question I was going to ask you when we start talking about Thursday night's game against the Eagles.
Yeah.
But I think, again, Geoff, listen, if we were just talking about what happened, okay, none of this other stuff was there. What happened? Listen, Packers win the trade, in my opinion. But I think that Kenny Clark's a good player. Now, would you rather have him 2-3 years ago? But he had 7.5 sacks 2 years ago. And I think that an inside pass rusher is very important these days because quarterbacks are so mobile and they can get outside. And what you want to do is you want to get them off the spot. We always said, like Drew Brees, you want to get them off the spot, make them flush out. And that's, if you have pressure from the interior, that's what you can do. With that said, I just don't think you give up your best players. When you let star players go, and we talked about the contract and timing, Micah Parsons was in the driver's seat with Green Bay, because if you're sitting in Green Bay's seat, you're saying, wow, when do we ever get a chance to get a player of this caliber, a difference maker in the NFL? So they were very excited to do that and willing to give him the contract they needed to do to get the deal done.
When people say the Packers overpaid for him or it's too much money, I disagree. You just talked about the impact that he can have on a team. If you're the Packers and you were very close last year to winning a lot of those games against playoffs, those your only losses were to playoff teams. They were by 2 points, 3 points, 4 points, like very close games. The ability to hit the passer and what it does for the rest of your team, right? He's a guy that, as every week on Wednesday, when we present a game plan, when the coaches present it to us, they have a list of players we have to circle. Like, these are the game records. These are guys you have to know where they are every play. So we know where Parsons is every single play. And that means if we know where he is, someone else, we might not know where someone else is. And because Parsons can play all over the line of scrimmage, you put him on the weakest link. And this is the way teams are rushing the passer now. They're not rushing the passer like old school. Like, we're just going to run twist games. You play on one side of the field, you stay there. Now, there are some guys that do that, right? Watt stays on one side of the field. Myles Garrett typically over the left tackle. I get that. But now pass rush is, we're finding your weakest link, and we're going to try to put the best player against that guy, whether it's a right guard, left guard, center. And Parsons does that. If you can get 3 or 4 or 5 more quarterback pressures in a game, maybe that's the difference between losing by 2 and winning by 3. And the Packers look at their team. They're young. Let's spend the money now. And Marty, the way the cap is going up, this deal might feel like a steal in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, and guess what? It might be less than that, Geoff, if they win the Super Bowl and Micah Parsons has a great season. Everybody that's saying, oh, it might have been too much, they're all going to be well behind it now because, we talked about the other day, when you win, it just solves all your problems. Right. And I think that I like the Packers' chances of winning the Super Bowl even before this trade. I mean, I'm right, you look back, Geoff, last year, I think they were in the top 5 in average yards per play on offense and in the top 5 in average points allowed average yards allowed per
Yeah.
play on defense. And they were my front runner pick just because the NFC East has such a difficult schedule playing the NFC North in the AFC West that, I love Philadelphia. I love the Commanders. But I think the Packers are set to win the NFC this year.
Yeah. We'll talk about our best bets later. That might be included. Quickly, Marty, I want to touch on this. So there was reports that Micah Parsons' podcast rub people the wrong way. And I'm sort of on a lone island here. I think as a former player that thinks that player-led podcast during the season, I just wouldn't be part of it. I don't think it's an extreme distraction. I don't think Parsons is not preparing for the games. I think he totally is. But, I think there's a time and place for those type of things. And you can say things inadvertently without realizing it, what it means to another teammate of yours or to your team. How much do you think that played a role in the Cowboys deciding, like, you know what, like we don't want to pay him, and now we don't want to be like his podcast. Like we're done with Micah Parsons.
Boy, Geoff, I don't know. I mean, again, this kind of fits into, I always kind of laugh anymore when everybody still says Dallas is America's team. They're not. But isn't the culture, is that part of the culture in Dallas is to do things like that? It's to me, I just feel like sometimes it's more of a me culture than a we culture. And, the Cowboys haven't been lived up to their image in recent years. I don't think they are America's team anymore. But I think that those type of things, the podcasts and the look for publicity, I think that's all part of the culture down there. So it'll be interesting to see what he does in Green Bay.
Yeah, I'm curious if they'll let him do that. All right, the Cowboys play the Eagles Thursday night. The Chiefs play the Chargers Friday night. We'll discuss both those games next on GM Shuffle presented by DraftKings Network.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
Welcome back to the GM Shuffle. Geoff Schwartz, Marty Hurney. We have games this week. Thursday, Friday, Sunday. Are we doing 2 Monday this week, Marty? I'm not the biggest fan of 2 Monday Night Football games, but there might be 2.
I'm not either, but yeah, the answer is yes.
So yeah, 2 Monday Night Football
I'm not a
games.
big fan either. Yeah,
big games all over the place. Yeah, I agree with that. We're going to preview Thursday night and Friday night now. And then to let you guys know, Thursday, we have a show every week during the season on Thursdays. We'll preview the rest of the games that happen on Sunday and on Monday. Maybe the end of the show today, we will have a best bet segment. We'll hit on some of those games for Sunday as well. So first game up, defending champion Eagles hosting the Cowboys. The number is up to 7.5 now on DraftKings. With the news of the Parsons trade, it moved a little bit as well. The total right now is 47.5. Cowboys team total is 19.5. Eagles team total is 28.5. Obviously, there are any endless amount of props on DraftKings to go with here. Marty, big picture for the Eagles. It's multiple years now they've lost their offensive coordinator. How does this play a role in the way they start? We saw last season, slow start on offense. It does feel like this can lead to slow starts every year if they keep replacing their coordinators.
It could. If it was any other organization, maybe I'd tell you it would. But I believe that organizations win Super Bowls, Geoff, and the Eagles right now are an organization that is totally on the same page from the owner to the general manager to the head coach. And I think they're coming out with something to prove. I really do. And it's funny, opening up with Dallas, and there's part of me that feels that Howie Roseman and the Eagles, in part, took that trade that the Cowboys made with Micah Parsons a little personally, because they know the Packers are a team that can challenge to win the NFC and get to the Super Bowl. And the Eagles only have one goal, and that's to repeat, to win the Super Bowl. I think everything I've read, they're totally focused. I expect them to come out and play extremely well Thursday night. And really, I thought that they were going to beat the Cowboys pretty handily before the Micah Parsons trade.
Yeah.
Now the question is, and I'm going to ask you, what effect in the locker room, in the Dallas locker room, does that trade have?
I think it's bad, Marty. I'm trying to think of like if I, when I was playing, if you guys traded Peppers like a week before the season started, I think a lot of us would be like, what the hell are they doing? Like, why are they? Because look, I mentioned this many times, and I'll keep repeating because I think it's so true. Like, we really, as players, do not care what anyone does as long as you can help us win on Sundays. You win on Sunday, everyone gets paid, right? It's that simple. And look, we're in it for obviously because we love playing football, but a lot of us want to get paid too, right? So it's a job, right? It's setting up for the future, setting up our families. Like, we want those, both are happening, right? We want to win and play well, and also we want to get paid. And Parsons helps players get paid. Because guess what? As I mentioned earlier, if you're a defensive lineman on the Cowboys, for example, or you're a pass rusher, you get one-on-ones because Parsons is in the game. Not anymore. You take the Cowboys' best pass rusher now is probably, is it Odigizua right now? Probably inside. I guess maybe it's Kenny Clark now. But like now I can send an extra lineman to that guy. Like if you're Philly with the way their tackles play, you can just have the interior three double team the two pass rushers the entire game. And so I just think like when your owner is not committed to winning, it's difficult on the players. And I've been in that spot before. Unfortunately, we played our asses off. I mean, we won any games. And like it's difficult as a player because you were bought in as players, right? We're bought in to win. Again, when you start week one, no matter what team you were on, you think you were winning the Super Bowl. I thought in 2010, Marty, we were winning the Super Bowl, okay? We didn't win the Super Bowl in 2010. Like, you think every single season, whatever team I was on, you're winning the Super Bowl. You feel less like you're winning the Super Bowl if Micah Parsons is not there. Now, you're on the road, a division opponent, and not only a division opponent, a champion, and someone that can beat you up at the line of scrimmage. So you're already maybe emotionally depressed a little bit. You go into Philly, and you just get pummeled by the Eagles. And that's what I think is about to happen here. I think Philly is just going to try to run it down their throat as usual. Tyler Guyton, I believe, is not playing for the Cowboys. That's a huge problem at left tackle for them. They'll probably start Nate Thomas, which, I mean, he's playing fine in the preseason, but not really 100%. So I think the Eagles do what they do, Marty. They're going to run the football. They're going to keep everything in front of them defensively. They're trying to pressure Dak. I'm curious to see, obviously, the dynamic of the wide receiver room in Dallas now. We didn't see much of anything in the preseason, so it's hard to really tell what that's going to be like. But I think the Eagles just physically are better than the Cowboys, and that will show over 60 minutes.
I always try to look at both sides. I've learned you try to look at both sides of each equation. And I guess the question I have is, if it wasn't for this emotional part, if it wasn't the way it happened, the timing, the effect it might have in the locker room, could you argue that this trade would help the Cowboys strictly in week one, but would help the Cowboys more because you have Kenny Clark, you have interior defensive lineman who has been through training camp, who 2 years ago had 7.5 sacks. So if he can get pressure up the middle, he can affect the game as well. The problem is he's going to be 30 in October, and long term, you just can't. It's hard to defend trading your defensive star for anybody, really. But I think I'm trying to figure out, okay, if the Cowboys come out with something to prove, are they better just for this first game with a guy who's been through training camp? Because Micah, who knows? I mean, Micah could have 3 sacks in the Packers opener, but I think that you do need training camp, right?
I think you do. The question I have too is, if you have planned a defense with they have new coaches, right, around Parsons being there. Obviously, he hasn't been there in a couple of weeks, and you've worked without him, but you designed a game plan, I would imagine, or not game plan, but your defense around him being there. He's not there anymore. So what changes have you made defensively to equate for your best player not being there? And I just feel like the Eagles are not the team to do that against. It feels like an uphill battle anyways. And plus, look, Lane Johnson plays well against Parsons. Like, it's not an easy opponent for them anyways. And that to me is concerning. And I think the Eagles are the way they're built, the way they run the football, the way they're able to just keep the defense in front of the offense. That's my concern. Marty, one wager I think I like that I tend to look at as quarterback throwing props. And Jalen Hurts under 214.5. is I think the way the Eagles would love to play this game. He averaged only 191 yards passing last season per game. I think we forget that. Like in the regular season, he didn't have to be that guy, right? He had 202 last year against Dallas in a big win, 34-6. I think this is a Eagles game, ball control, run the football, take the air out of the game, smarter Cowboys. I think Hurts underpassing is a way I look to play this game.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and Saquon Barkley is just going to be a workhorse the whole game, I think. And I agree. That's the way the Eagles would love to play the game, and I think they will. It's you talk about props. Like I like Jalen Carter getting a sack, 1+ sacks. And I think that it's going to be interesting to see how the Cowboys offensive line matches up against this Eagles defensive line. But I like the Eagles before. The spread went up because probably of the emotional factor is in the Cowboys locker room. If it's not, should the spread going over 7 points? That's what I'm dealing with. But I think there's only way you can go here. I think the Eagles should come in, and it just feels like they'll come in and win this game pretty handily.
Yeah, I would not. If you missed the Eagles, the best of the Eagles number, you should not take the Eagles now. You might wait to see what happens. People might come in and hit 7.5 and come back down to 7, but you've missed it now. If I'm taking a side, I'm actually probably leaning to the 7.5 with Dallas. It's a better number now than it would be previously. We have a game Friday night, Marty, between the Chiefs and Chargers. The Chiefs are a 3-point favorite. The game is in Brazil. And I'll tell you what, man, I don't know if I'm taking the Chiefs -3. I know sharp groups have hit it at 2.5 to bump it up to 3 and hit it at 2. This game is not in Los Angeles, even though it's a Chargers home game. The Chargers tend to play this game like it's their Super Bowl. But I'll tell you, maybe I'm intoxicated by what I saw in the Chiefs' third preseason game. If they're going to run that offense where they throw the ball down the field, Marty, I am all in on Kansas City this season. And if they do that, they're going to win more games than not. They're going to cover way more games than they have in the past. And I think this game is going to be the Chiefs exercising some Super Bowl demons. I like them to win and cover this game.
I don't disagree. Geoff, you're not the only one who has said they're impressed with the summer that the Chiefs have had. I've talked to a few people that were through their training camp, and they said the same thing. The energy is extremely high. I'm trying to get over the point that I think the last 20 years, I think this is right, that the teams that have lost the Super Bowl, only 1 of 20, 1 in 19 come back and win it. And I think losing it, I've been through it twice. It really does take an emotional toll on you. Now, maybe not so much with the Chiefs because they won so many, but I know when you hadn't won one and you get there and you lose it, it takes a long time to get over it. So I don't know whether they're going to come out with the Super Bowl hangover, but if there's one organization that's going to do that and survive that, it's Kansas City.
Well, the year after they lost in 2020, they made it back to the AFC Championship game. Like they were so close. The Bengals had that upset, right, to get to right. The AFC Championship game. I think Kansas City is on a mission this year. The Chargers, I like what Harbaugh has done. I just don't know if they have enough pass catchers quite yet still, right? They're relying on Ladd McConkey, as we know, who was beat up in training camp. They're relying on a rookie running back. I'm high on Marty Hampton. I think he's going to be good. Their offensive line, they moved Alt and to left tackle now, but the interior with Bozeman and Johnson, not quite sure. Becton didn't practice much during training camp. So basically, it's just a lot of didn't practice in training camp, playing week 1. The left tackle gets hurt. They're relying on Trey Harris, who's not catching the ball terribly well. I think Kansas City is in much better shape than the Chargers at the moment. So maybe it's a homer in me. I don't like to wager on my favorite team very often, which is the Chiefs. But I would go with the Chiefs here -3. You might wait to get a 2.5. I doubt 2.5 comes back. Maybe just go and take the 3 now and be done with it. This game is mentioned. It's in Brazil. Footing sometimes in these international games is pretty crummy. So pay attention to that. Maybe a live under is a way to go. All right, coming up next, we're going to talk second-year quarterback topic Marty wanted to discuss. I love this topic. We'll do that next on GM Shuffle, presented by DraftKings Network.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
Welcome back to the GM Shuffle. Geoff Schwartz, Marty Hurney. We'll give you our best bets for the NFL season in just about 13 minutes. So stay tuned to that. We have lots to get to before the season actually kicks off on Thursday. And one thing we want to kick around now, I love this idea, Marty, is second-year quarterbacks and basically what we expect from them this season. Expectations, impact, development, and just like holistically, Marty, as a general manager, what do you need to see from a quarterback leaving year two, so the end of this season, to feel like he is the guy for the future to build around?
Well, I think that, you just see he's got to be the starter, and he's got to be a starter who can win games for you by the end of year two. We already know that about Jaden Daniels, right? I mean, he came in the first year, and it's funny because I think as much as people talk about him, I don't think they're giving him enough credit. So I think he's going to prove to be one of the top quarterbacks in the league for a lot of years. You look at this whole draft class, Geoff, and it just really intrigues me because six quarterbacks taken in the top 12 picks, right? Now, the last time six quarterbacks were taken in the first round was 1983, I believe. And you had John Elway, Todd Blackledge, Jim Kelly, Ken O'Brien, Dan Marino, Tony Eason. Tony Eason actually went before Ken O'Brien, but 3 Hall of Famers out of the 6. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen here, but all 6 of these guys have the potential to be a real impact on their team, and it's because of their ability, but I think a lot of it's because of fit. I mean, Caleb Williams is now with Ben Johnson, right? And Peyton Manning always said the best way to stunt a young quarterback's growth is to keep changing offensive coordinators. Well, Caleb Williams now has a head coach, Ben Johnson, who has a reputation for working with quarterbacks. He's going to be exciting to watch. I do think it's going to take him time for him and Johnson to get on the same page. So kind of look for the Bears to have a slow start and improve as the season goes on. Jaden Daniels, you don't have to say anymore. I mean, him and Cliff Kingsbury are on the same page. And I do expect the Commanders to be a real factor in the NFC race this year. Drake May with the Patriots now. I think Mike Vrabel, Ryan Tannehill. I think the comparison is legit, and I think Drake May is going to be going to make the Patriots a force again. If not this year, because obviously the Buffalo Bills are a team to beat. But in the near future. And then Michael Penix, Atlanta's got a chance to get into the playoffs if Penix can play like they hope he can play. J.J. McCarthy is with Kevin O'Connell. Bo Nix is with Sean Payton. I think all 6 of these guys, Geoff, have a chance to become very, very good starters in this league.
So let's go through these individually and discuss sort of what we think maybe the best and worst case scenarios, right? Like what's the upside? What's like, oh boy, this didn't go very well. So Jaden Daniels is number one, I think, for a lot of us, and for good reason. I'm like you, Marty. I remember a couple months ago, I was talking to a Commander's friend of mine, and you know how your phone works, right? When you start texting someone about something, you go to like an app, like TikTok, for example, and all of a sudden Jaden Daniels highlights pop up, of course, right? And I forgot how good he was last season. The throw he had on Monday Night Football against the Bengals, I think it was week 3, incredible. Like he legitimately 12-5 last season, a legitimate talent. And everyone has this idea of him backsliding this season because CJ Stroud backslid last season. I don't see that at all. Much different situation, different offensive line, different coordinator, different weapons. I think Daniels will keep ascending this season. I think obviously the goal is you end this season and next year is a Super Bowl push. It feels like the path that Washington hopes to have. I don't see a floor this year, Marty. I don't know what the floor would even be, like the bottom of what he would be this season. I guess it would be last year. I don't see that happening. So for me, are you on the path as well where you think if they end year 2 with we can make a legitimate Super Bowl push in year 3 is about the best they can, they can do for Jaden this season?
I think they can make a Super Bowl push this year. The only thing that stops me is that schedule. But I really do think that this is a team that has a formula how to win, and they're all on the same page, from the owner, general manager, head coach, offensive coordinator. You can tell this is an organization that is all on the same page. So I think that, listen, Jaden Daniels, he didn't fall out of the sky. I mean, I went in there twice when he was a senior at LSU. I remember looking at one of the coaches saying, "Am I really seeing what I'm seeing?" He's a 5-year starter in college. He did this. I mean, LSU probably would have beat Alabama his senior year if he didn't get knocked out of the game. And I think the only concern I had was the injuries, but every time he gets hit, he pops up right away. So
I know, yeah.
I think he's going to be one of the stars of this league for many years to come.
I'm a strong agreement there. Next up is Bo Nix, who, look, I watched all snaps for 2 years at Oregon. I watched the entire offense at Oregon. It's much more pro style than we give it credit for. And Bo Nix, to me, I thought this would be Bo Nix. I thought he was more ready than people gave him credit for. And we saw last season what that was. What do you want to see from him this year for improvement? To me, I want Payton to open up the offense a little bit more and give him more to do and just take a little more command of situations. And look, with their defense, you might not have to do that, but that to me feels like the next step, Marty. And if you end this season where you feel like he's allowed to do more, you've given him more in his play, and he's executed at a high level, I think you feel great about where you are to end the season. I think the ceiling is basically that he just doesn't get any better. He just is what he is, and you start to scheme around him instead of scheme for him. And so that's what I'm curious to watch this season, is where do we see the improvements in his game? And does he end the year feeling like this is, he's on the rise, essentially?
Exactly. So really, we got to find out whether he's a win with quarterback or a win because of quarterback, right? And I think that Sean Payton, first year quarterback last year, brought him along slowly. I mean, you can't ask for a better coach as far as developing a young quarterback than Sean Payton. And here is the fit again. I think that these two fit each other so well. And listen, Bo Nix, I wasn't totally crazy about him at Auburn, and went out to practices at Oregon. And boy, he owned the practice. He was the leader of that team. The way he talked to the receivers and the offensive line, and just everybody knew he was the leader of that team. And I think that he got selected by the perfect team and the perfect coach by Peyton. So I expect him to improve. I expect him to be given more and improve. And I think that the Broncos are a real factor in the AFC West because of that.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. So you went to Oregon. How was your trip to? I was just in Eugene last weekend. Did you enjoy? Did you enjoy your trip there?
I love going to Eugene. They treat you great out there,
They
and
do.
I really enjoy the visit. Always enjoy
We
the
we
visit.
we had the best time. There, Dan Lanning is putting together quite a program there at Oregon.
Yes, he is.
Next up here is McCarthy. So look, Marty, I am to me the Vikings have the widest range of outcomes this season. Where if McCarthy is good, they could win the NFC, and McCarthy isn't good, they could not be a playoff team with their division. I feel like I kind of sit in the middle. I think McCarthy is going to be fine eventually, but that the early season is going to be a little bit of struggle as he gets used to playing with Jefferson and Addison, and the play caller has to figure out, guys, it takes half a season for a play caller to figure out what works best with a quarterback and what works best for the offense with that quarterback. So to me, I would envision a slow start, but I do think by the end of this year, we'll have a good idea on what McCarthy can be. And Marty, I don't know if he has the upside of the two quarterbacks we've mentioned so far.
And he might not have to, Geoff, because, right now he's a win with quarterback, right? But look at the weapons he's got. Look at the team he's going into. And the head coach, Kevin O'Connell, again, quarterback guru, one of the quarterback coaches that make a difference. And I know he's the head coach, but I think that McCarthy might be the most interesting one to watch here, because certainly the Vikings have enough around him to make him successful. He's had a year there, and he's smart, he's tough, and he makes plays. And he had a lot around him at Michigan, and they're going to have to run the ball and be a balanced offense. But I tell you, with the talent he's got around him, I think he can be very solid this year. Now he's in a very competitive division, and is he going to get better? Sure, but is he good enough for the Vikings to make the playoffs this year? Possibly.
I'm just concerned. Like he's, yeah, he might be able to get away with the Michigan plan, which is basically like, don't have to do very much. Let someone else do it for you, essentially, right? Which is the offensive line, the run game, the defense. But there's going to be moments this season, those 3rd and 8, those 3rd and 9s, those big moments, Marty, where he hasn't done a lot of that in his career so far. Didn't do it in Michigan. Obviously didn't do it last year. That's what worries me. It's not that the overall play of him. I think overall he'll be fine in the offense. They'll scheme up some ways for him to get guys open. He's got great athletes. Like, he'll throw the ball to Jefferson. He'll break some long runs. Like, he will find those moments, Marty. But I am slightly concerned that those big moments, the red zone, 3rd down, 3rd and long, essentially 3rd and medium to long, he just has to have a lot of reps in the NFL doing that. And that's my concern, is that I don't know if he's ready for those moments yet. And look, to be fair, the Vikings probably don't either until he actually plays.
Listen, the year he came out, I mean, I liked several of these guys a little bit better, but Geoff, I know 2 or 3 evaluators that I really respect in this league and really like J.J. McCarthy. I mean, they thought he was one of the best quarterbacks in that draft. And it's going to be interesting to me because you're right. I mean, he doesn't have the flash and really the playmaking ability that the Jane Daniels and, we're going to talk about Caleb Williams here and even Drake May, but there's something about him. And we were with a quarterback like that made everybody better because of his intangibles and his leadership and his ability to make plays at key times. And
Yeah.
he's going to be really interesting because the Vikings are so good around him, and Kevin O'Connell knows how to develop quarterbacks.
Yeah. I'm just so fascinated by the idea that, like, the one thing that is tough for, I think, my brain and some people's brains is like the evaluation process of, we see what you do in film in college, but a lot of the evaluation is about what you can do in the NFL. And what you do in college is maybe not as important as what you can be in the NFL. And for a lot of us, we look at what he did at Michigan, and there were some really good moments, but also there was a play, a sequence with Alabama in the playoffs where, he made a great throw and then he made just a horrendous throw back to back. And you're like, like, those are things that has to be sort of cleaned up. And until he actually does it, we don't really know. We have 3 quarterbacks left. Drake May to talk about, Penix Jr., and I think most importantly for discussion, Caleb Williams. We'll do that next, along with our best bets on the GM Shuffle presented by DraftKings Network.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
Back on the GM Shuffle, Geoff Schwartz, Marty, Hurney, continue our discussion about second-year quarterbacks and what we hope to see from them this year, their floor and their ceiling, and what Marty's a general manager, looks for in these guys as we head into year 2. Let's go to New England, Drake May. We saw some flashes last season with a roster around him that wasn't great. A new OC this year in McDaniels, a new head coach, obviously, and very well. I do think their pitchers are a little overhyped, to be honest, Marty, but that's not part of the discussion now. Drake May, year 2. The thing that concerns me the most about Drake May is not whether he has a talent. The roster around him, I think, is lacking. And you look at the rest of these guys, you look at Daniels, you look at even Caleb Williams, we haven't talked about yet, but we will. Look at Bo Nix, and like their rosters are really good. Will Campbell will have his up and downs as a rookie. I think he can be good. Jared Wilson's played well at left guard, also a rookie. Bradbury, okay. Morgan Moses, veteran. He's there for veteran leadership. He can still play, obviously, but I think that that's a 1-year deal for him, basically. Tight end, fine. Trevor Henderson looks legit. He looks really good.
Right.
And then the wide receivers are Boutte, Diggs, and Douglas. I guess. Well, I don't feel great about that. Like, to me, is that Drake May might be as good as these other guys. That's, to be fair, not as good as Daniels, but I don't know if the things around him are there to make him look really good this season.
I agree. His arrow is pointing up, and I think he's going to be a really good quarterback, Geoff. But I remember the year before he got drafted, and we went up to New England to play, and I'll never forget this because, we went up there. We played so many teams that were so great for them, and we went through, and it was later in the season. The parking lot was, man, if it was half full, that's gracious. I doubt whether it was half full. And seeing that stadium, the parking lot pregame like that, just stuck with me because I never seen it like that. But went into that game, and again, it basically backed up what you said is the roster was not good. It was really one of the worst rosters a couple years ago in the NFL, in my opinion. Now Mike Vrabel comes in, and I have a lot of respect for Elliott Wolf and Ryan Cowden, and who are doing the personnel for them. And I think that this roster is going to get better and better. I think that Vrabel's got a blueprint that fits Drake May perfectly. Now it's how quickly can it change into wins? I don't know that. So I think this is still more of a developmental year for Drake May, but I do like the combination of him, Vrabel, Josh McDaniels. I think that he's got a really bright future. This is another guy. I think that this team is going to get better as the season goes. So maybe not look at them early in the year, but as the year progresses, I think they're going to get a lot better.
I think you're right about that. Michael Penix with the Falcons, heading into to basically a full season with him as a starter, a full off season with him as a starter. Look, he's got a cannon of an arm. He can make every throw you need in the NFL. I think there's still some issues with just a little touch and accuracy on the ball at times. Got a ton of weapons around him. The offensive line, though, is a little concerning in Atlanta with the McGarry injury. Marty, that does concern me a little bit there. Because one tackle out, okay, that happens. Hopefully no one else gets hurt. I like the running backs, obviously. He showed he can do a lot last season. Where do you stand with is he the forgotten guy of this class?
Little bit, and again, he was one of those guys that I went back and forth on and probably had him 6 out of the group. And I'm not sure that's going to pan out to be right, because really, if Michael Penix can come out in year 2 and be the player that they think he is, I think Atlanta can shock the world and be and win the NFC South. I really do. And the shock the world might be a little bit too strong, but I think they can be a surprise team and at least make the playoffs. And I think that he gives you everything that you're looking for in a young quarterback. He's got mobility. He's got a strong arm. I like a lot of things about him. They've drafted extremely well on offense, and he's got a lot of weapons around him. You mentioned Bijan Robinson and Drake London. This is a team and a quarterback that I am really interested to follow this year. And if he can have an above average year, just be good, I think the Falcons can win a lot of games.
I'm with you there. Look, he can throw the ball. I feel like he's sort of the forgotten guy of the 6 guys right here, because he didn't start last year. The Cousins draw. He was drafted, I believe, 8th overall, for a reason, drafted that high. And so the Falcons hope to get the most. The Falcons are the one team, Marty, every single year that I get wrong, no matter what direction I choose. I bet on them. They don't cover. I bet against them. They cover. It's one of those teams I never get a great read on the Atlanta Falcons. I am worried about their defense still and their pass rush. And if they get those young guys playing well, then it will obviously help the offense. I don't think you want to obviously put everything on Michael Penix's arm. And look, they have a good run game, good running backs. You can take a lot of that off of him if you're able to play a little bit of defense this season. Let's spend a good amount of time on Caleb Williams now. So the Bears starting quarterback heading year 2 with Ben Johnson. I talked to someone with the Bears. They're, I think, a tad concerned about the ability to generate explosive plays with the roster they have at the moment offensively, which I think is a valid concern after what we saw with the way Ben Johnson was able to utilize the weapons in Detroit. Doesn't have those guys quite yet. They're building in that direction. And obviously year 2, Roma Dunze, DJ Moore, and Colson Loveland, which I really like out of Michigan as a more of a Jimmy Graham type tight end than a blocking tight end, but really a mismatch. Good at running back, offensive line. Hope the tackles take the next step. They obviously improved their interior with the trades and free acquisitions of those 3 interior guys. The thing I go back to, Marty, and I think I didn't give this enough. I never viewed this as a problem till the data has been better on it. And maybe I just never paid attention to it. It's certainly fair. Is if you are a high quarterback sack guy in college, you tend to be a high quarterback sack guy in the NFL. And I always used to blame that on everything else. Offensive line, schemes, with college schemes. This is obviously an NFL show. Some of these college schemes are atrocious. I don't know how you watch college film, Marty, all the time and evaluate these guys. They're just not very good. Now, they're built for college. Absolutely fine. but there's nothing to translate to the NFL. It's a difficult watch. And so some of the sacks are just scheme-wise, right? Some of them are protection, some of them are holding the ball too long, but it does feel like those carry over. How do you break Caleb Williams of that? If Ben Johnson can do this, can get him on schedule, on time, he has a talent to be the best quarterback or one of the best in this class. But you got to break him of that habit, Marty.
You do. And I think most of the time it's holding on to the ball too long, right, Geoff? And what's that say? That kind of goes into vision, okay? Is he seeing what he's supposed to be seeing? Is can he go through his progressions and spot the open guy quick enough to get the ball out? I think the way you correct that is the same offensive coordinator, the same quarterback coach for several years for a young quarterback. And this is the one that's so intriguing to me because Caleb Williams has a ton of physical ability as a quarterback. I mean, everybody who went in there, even 2 years before he came out, I mean, he was the next guy. Everybody had him inked in at number one for 2 years. Now he gets with Ben Johnson, right? Who everybody knows can develop quarterbacks. What he did with Jared Goff was very instrumental in the Lions' success. So now what's he going to do with Caleb Williams? I do think it's going to be some time here, the first part of the season, for Williams and Ben Johnson to really get on the same page. Just talking to people and reading stuff through training camp, it still feels like Williams is trying to get comfortable with Ben Johnson's thinking, what he sees, what he wants from him. But I do think he's talented enough to improve on that each week. And I think by the second half of the season, Caleb Williams should be a really good quarterback. But you're right, he's got to see things. So holding on to the ball, what's that say? Is vision? Is it being able to see downfield? We'll see about that. But I if Ben Johnson can't get it out of him, then I don't think anybody can. But I really do expect Caleb Williams to be a very good quarterback. A win because of guy.
Before we get to our best bets, quickly, Marty, out of the 6 guys here, not everyone can be good. Who's your pick for the guy that struggles the most this season?
This season?
Yes.
I would probably say JJ just because we haven't seen him and what he can do, but I'm kind of reluctant to say that because I have the highest regard for Kevin O'Connell and what he does offensively and the weapons they have around him. But I guess if I had to pick one, I'd probably say either JJ or Michael Penix, probably JJ. I think Drake May is going to make improvement with the Mike Vrabel's idea of offense. It might not show in stats, but I think he's going to continue to improve. But I think right now it would be J.J. McCarthy, but it certainly wouldn't surprise me if they won a lot of games with him. That's absolutely the way they were built at times last year with Sam Darnold. All right. This week's NFL bets are presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. All right, Marty, what's your favorite wager for the season that's starting on Thursday? Well, I've kind of blown this, but I love the Packers to win the NFC and perhaps the Super Bowl. I think that they were a very good team before the Parsons trade, and I think they're even better now. So Jordan Love is a guy who I think he's basically after week 10, the last 4 seasons, he's kind of won about 70% of his games. He's getting better and better every year. He's in that year now where you really expect him to take a huge step in Green Bay's got a lot around him. So we talked about offense and defense. They're very balanced. So I think that they win. I do think the Atlanta Falcons can surprise and maybe get a playoff spot as we spoke if Michael Penix plays well. But in our NFC South wagers, I think the Panthers can be really good this season. But my best bet is the Chiefs to win the AFC West. Its number is incredibly low, minus 115 time of recording. I think the Chiefs are just better than they were last season. It's that simple. Better wide receiver. Travis lost a bunch of weight. He looks rejuvenated. It's probably his last season. Mahomes are throwing the ball down the field. There's a chip on their shoulder. The offensive line is going to be fine. Defensively, they are what they are. Like, they don't have to be great. Just be good. And they can be just good, right? It's all they have to do. Chris Jones, obviously. Some young guys in the secondary. So I like the Chiefs to win the division still. Gotta prove me wrong, man. Someone's got to do it. The Chargers
It's going to be the Broncos. We'll find out as the first game of the season for Kansas City is on Friday. We'll be back on Thursday, everyone, with our NFL season preview for Week 1. New episodes every Monday, every Thursday on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. Thank you for joining us. We'll talk to you guys on Thursday.